It is Madden Benz Unfiltered, and there is a lot to get to. Tim Benz and Mark Madden with you. Mark, first and foremost, did you see Get Up this morning, and did Mike Greenberg praise Mike Tomlin for nearly covering the spread against a rookie quarterback in DTR in the Cleveland Browns?
No, so I don't know.
Okay, all right. I'm just going to assume that he did because that would fit the pattern. Although I know you want this to be more about Kenny Pickett today than anybody else, and understandably so.
Well, the reason I didn't watch Get Up is because I was too busy finishing my column for the Trib, which is 900 words of eviscerating Kenny Pickett, and I'm not sure I went far enough.
What would you do with the other, 300 to 400 words that you didn't write then? What did you leave on the cutting room floor?
Well, actually, I read an interesting thing on Twitter by a guy named Chuck Curdy, who works for the Trib, who said that he heard on a talk show when he was driving home from Toronto that the Steelers are like the Broncos with Tim Tebow. They won X amount of games with Tim Tebow, but they realized it wasn't going anywhere and had to replace him. And maybe that is where the Steelers are at. In fact, it certainly is, because this can't go on. I mean, I wouldn't even start Pickett next week, let alone start him next year. And another thing I've read in a different time for the Steelers would sound foolish and goes totally against their grain too, Tim. Maybe if they think they have a team that can contend right now with a better quarterback, maybe they should go get Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, they don't have that kind of team as far as I'm concerned, because I think the issues do go.
Yeah, but they might think that anyway.
Yeah, but
if they do think that, they should do that, but they don't think that, so they won't do that. Now I'm trying to be clever.
No, I understand what you're saying. In fact, that's kind of where I was going next, which is the Steelers are running into their own wall of contradictions. Like, the offense works because it's safe and the ball doesn't get turned over. Well, the fact that they don't ever try anything down the field because they're trying to have that be a self-fulfilling prophecy makes the offense not work.
Tim, I can cut to the chase. It's an incompetently run franchise from top to bottom. Almost every single person involved with the administration of that team is a fool.
Oh, and I thought the administration of the team itself was a storyline that needs to be investigated even more, because I thought it was a clown car at times yesterday, getting people on and off.
Tim, you're right. But you mean the early timeouts?
Yeah, the early timeouts, the delay of game.
Just ridiculous. But I'm talking about the team is flawed in the assembly. Omar Khan's not a GM. He's a money guy. And they put him at the GM spot because they felt they had to reward him for years of service. Andy Weidel, don't know how much power he has. Tomlin's a buffoon in almost every way a man in his job description can be, a description which extends far beyond coach. The owner is the third generation of a family business. We've been through that before. It's just from top to bottom a joke. And I don't see how anybody could deny that, but people do.
Well, they do because of the mediocrity, the barely above mediocrity that they have achieved in recent years. And the whole theory of, well, that's what the NFL wants, and they're just part of a bigger body of the NFL. But that's
not true. That's not true.
That's not what this team is supposed to be about either. There's reasons why we act like this franchise is special, but it hasn't been that for quite some time.
Well, and people are starting to see it too. I mean, the vitriol after this loss, I mean, they're still 6-4, but the vitriol over this loss is I would say excessive, but it's also deserved. And who was a spokesman for the people, Tim, and a spokesman for Mark Madden? In fact, from now on, he speaks for me.
Najee Harris. Yeah.
Najee Harris is my voice among the Steelers, because he said one thing yesterday we should all remember. I'm roughly paraphrasing, but it might be exact because it's grammatically terrible, but nonetheless factual. The way we won, we ain't going nowhere. And he's right.
Yeah.
He's absolutely 100% right. The Steelers have the most meaningless 6-3 record in football. Just like a few years back, they were the worst 11-0 team in history.
And we keep hearing the same old tropes about why we should believe in what they're doing on a week-to-week basis. Like, well, they'll tear apart Jake Browning. Well, they didn't DTR.
But they never look beyond the next week. That's the problem. There is absolutely no big picture thinking. What they need to do is turn Kenny Pickett loose and let him either succeed or fail decisively, and that way they know. Instead, they're taking a first-round pick, made him into a scared-to-death game manager, and a bad one at that, and they just hope they can win by 3 the next week. That's their only goal, is to win by 3 in the fourth quarter the next week. And to quote Najee, the way they win, they ain't going nowhere.
You know what? Tomlin actually admitted that a couple weeks ago, but he just did it in a different way. And it was coming off the Jacksonville game. When he tried to tamp down all the conversation about the officiating, he said, we've got to be good enough so that we aren't flimsy going into the later stages of a game where one call can ruin us. Well, you know what? They are flimsy.
But again, Tim, what he says there is directly contradictory with the approach he takes.
Exactly. He's playing into that, because he always plays to this one-score game thing.
Tim, he's a buffoon, and every word that comes out of his mouth is horse manure. Okay, and he's fooled everybody for so long, and if he keeps doing it now, that's a comment on everyone he fools stupidity, and not him being at least good at being carny.
And you know what, Mark? We're only looking at this from a Pittsburgh perspective, but I mean, look at what the conversation was going into the game from Cleveland and their fans, especially after it became known that DTR was going to be the quarterback. You know, that second half of the week leading up to kickoff against the Steelers, Browns fans were basically saying, okay, I get it. They want to see what he has. They want to see if he can be a legitimate backup to Watson. That's probably better than going with PJ Walker. I get it. Just don't have him throw 40 times. What was it, 36 times that he threw against the Ravens? Don't do that to him again, especially against TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. He dropped back 45 times. 45 times that
you know why? You know why? Because they're not scared. And they didn't make him scared. The Steelers are scared, and they make Pickett scared. They coach the team. They approach the game in cowardly fashion.
Yeah, and the late game execution on both sides of the ball was hideous. They didn't do anything to come up with a big play defensively like they normally do, A, and B, on the offensive side of the ball, for all the horror that was out there to watch offensively, man, did it crystallize when they had the ball with 1:47 left to go. 3 incompletions in 15 seconds to Deontay Johnson, who was targeted 8 times and only had 2 catches.
Yeah, he was visibly frustrated on the sideline, people are saying. He had to be kind of dragged away from yelling at a coach. I didn't get the details on that. But yeah, I mean, this team stinks and it's badly run. I mean, and what aggravates me, which is why I didn't watch Get Up this morning, Tim, is when people say the coach is a genius. They couldn't be more wrong. They are saying one extreme and the other extreme is a lot closer to the truth.
So you'd start Rudolph against the Bengals?
Well, if I could, I wouldn't watch the game. But I mean, Tim, I don't know. I mean, my argument for Rudolph would be he hasn't proven he stinks recently.
Yeah, the last time he's had a chance to prove he stinks, that was against the Lions when he bounced the ball in the end zone. Right, yes.
Yeah, and Pickett does that all the time, except he never gets close enough to the end zone.
They don't get to the red zone enough to do that.
He's bouncing the ball at the 40.
I mean, that Jalen Warren play, it's amazing. He had 74 yards on one rush. Pickett threw for 106, and he wouldn't have gotten over 100 if it wasn't for that ridiculous pass at the end with 2 seconds left. That's the only thing that got him over 100 yards.
Did you see the stat that I retweeted, Tim? Since the AFL-NFL merger, 315 quarterbacks have thrown 500 passes or more, and only one has thrown touchdowns on less than 2% of his attempts, and that's Kenny Pickett at 1.9.
Yeah, they are petrified to let him do anything. But
by the way, doesn't that seem like a low number? Only 315 quarterbacks that have thrown 500 or more passes?
Yes, it does. It does. I feel like there's been 315 quarterbacks this year in the NFL with all the injuries.
Yeah, just for the Giants.
Tommy, there you go. How about that? There's your new favorite stat. Tommy DeVito had 3 touchdowns in one game for the Giants yesterday, and Kenny Pickett hasn't done that yet in his career.
You know what people haven't picked up on, Tim? Tommy DeVito is the name of Joe Pesci's character in Goodfellas.
That was his last name?
Yeah, they called him Tommy D all the time.
And it was DeVito? See, I should know this. He's a Syracuse guy. I should have stumbled on that at some point then.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's probably the most interesting thing we've said today.
You were also interested in what you said about Nedeljkovic, the Myles Garrett jersey-wearing goalie for the Pittsburgh Penguins. You want him to start on Wednesday against the Rangers, right?
Yeah, and that's not, I'm not burying Jari. I'm not saying that Nedeljkovic should be the number one goalie. I'm just saying he threw a shutout, looked good against the defending Stanley Cup champs. And, you're trying to lighten Jari's workload. And I would think at long last, after him constantly coming up short, not stinking, but coming up short, there's a difference. After years of that, never having won a playoff series, the Penguins missed the playoffs last year. I think when Nedeljkovic gets hot, he should get an extra game. I think that's just common sense.
How well did he play, and just how much better was the play in front of him? How can you separate the two?
Play in front of him was good, but he was very efficient. He was crisp. He was on top of the crease. He was putting pucks after saves into positions where they couldn't be exploited by Vegas. He just did goalie 101 to perfection. I don't think he made more than a couple of really great saves, but in a 3-0 game with an empty netter, that's crucial, right?
Yeah, and since the last time we talked, that was definitely their best effort. Now, the Devil game was not good, and the game against the Hurricanes was just a typical game against the Hurricanes. It's close right until the end, and then the Penguins lose. They got to do something about those two teams in their division, Mark, because they've just got extended losing streaks against those clubs, and they can't afford that. That's part of the reason why they didn't make the playoffs last year, was playing poorly against those teams in their division.
You know what's weird about the Canes? And I don't know why Brendan Moore does this, but his best goalie is his third goalie, the younger kid from Russia, Kochetkov, and he won't play it. Like last year, because of injury, Kochetkov played like 17 games somewhere in there, and he was like third in the league in shutouts with 5. And I don't know why he won't play him, but he won't. And I said to a friend of mine who works in the league in player administration, that was a broad description so as not to narrow it down too much. I said, why don't somebody like you guys or whoever go get Kochetkov? And he goes, Brendan Moore won't play him, but he won't trade him.
What about Raquel? Where are you, and where should they be on Raquel at this point?
Try to move him. He looks just frazzled, and maybe he'd do better with a different team with another start. But then again, he's barely been here, right?
Do you feel like he's dragging down that line? Not just from the lack of scoring, but is the rest of his play teetering now too because he's so frustrated?
The Malkin line?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's starting to happen. They took him off the line of Carolina mostly and had Zahorna on there, right? But that don't work either. See, that's the big problem with this team. There's no one to move up and down from the bottom 6.
Yeah, Sullivan can't use the bench or the lineup as a weapon, really.
You know who you could use? Like if you really wanted to stretch a little, is Eller. But then you don't have a third line center.
Yeah, I value him at the third line center position, especially since it's only recently that the fourth line has started to get better.
Yeah, although again, thinking out loud, I have always said, and many people have agreed with me, Drew O'Connor's best position is center.
Yeah, for sure. So you're saying that would vacate a hole, and then O'Connor can go up there, and Eller goes to the.
But then again, Eller's not really a right wing either. He's a left wing or a center.
Mark, when you were watching the game with the Steelers against the Browns, do you think Evan Washburn made up any of his sideline reports?
That's almost hard to talk about, Tim. Now, like the first couple of days after that broke about Carissa Thompson lying about her sideline reports about having talked to coaches, it was real interesting, and then nothing happened to her. She issued an apology that wasn't an apology. She was on Fox the very night that story broke, and it just doesn't matter. People don't care that the media, not just the sports media, but the media has become tribal, and it just is based on entertainment more than fact, which means it's not journalism at all. I'll tell you what, too. If I would, everybody goes on those podcasts like Spit and Chicklets and Pardon My Take because they feel relaxed and it's like a cool thing to do. Is there anything more cunning than who are those two guys, the Big Cat and
PFT commenter?
PFT commenter. Anything more cunning than them kind of relaxing Carissa Thompson into spilling the beans on having committed professional fraud, and then they release the podcast the day she's on Amazon that night?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that was booked or anything. I know those guys go on with Randy all the time at DV. Maybe they'll come on this week.
I don't think it was coincidence, Tim, the timing.
No, I don't think so either. I thought
those guys, they're the cool podcasters. They are out for themselves. They are out for headlines. That's the kind of thing where if they were really friends with the guests, like they pretend to be, right? They should have said, Carissa, do you want us to edit that out? Okay. But they're not friends of the guests. They're posing as friends of the guests.
Okay. So
which is, I got to be honest, it's somewhat sinister. I mean, I think like, I get why those guys are popular. I myself don't get it, but I'm 62. I'm not supposed to. But their agenda is a lot worse. Like they're not friends of the guests. Put it that way. Pat McAfee is, but he's live, so that doesn't matter.
Where I thought you were going with the whole friends of the guest angle was they released it, and then I didn't see if PFT commenter said anything, but I know Big Cat kind of said like he tried to quell the attacks on Carissa Thompson, saying, "Oh, you guys are taking it too far. You guys are."
No.
But the Barstool tweet literally was Carissa Thompson out here just making up sideline reports now. You know, like
right. Well, Barstool is a sinister operation posing as everybody's buddy. Okay, that's what it is. I mean, they have taken journalism and corrupted it and made millions from it. But it just, what they've done isn't good for our profession. But I doubt they care, and pretty soon I won't have to.
All right, let's get to some comments, Mark. We got a lot to get to. People piling on. The Steelers also, I'm sure, want to get to some Penguins conversation. If you want to post either, now is the time to do it. Eric says, Mark, when I called your show a couple of weeks ago, you said it was too early to label Pickett a bust. Rather, it was a fair question if he's on that trajectory. How about now? I think it's official that he most certainly is.
Yeah, I wrote in the Trib column that people say he's not had enough time. First off, 22 starts is enough time. Second off, give me a number that you would consider to be enough time. Is it 30 starts? Is it 40 starts? Because he'll still stink then. I mean, this is exactly as it appears. I've concluded, and probably should have earlier, that him having played 5 years at Pitt and being 23 when he was drafted, he probably hit his ceiling even before he left college football. That was probably as good as he was going to get, and I think we're seeing that now. And adding to his problems, and he's clearly badly rattled by the way things are going. Clearly.
Yeah, you know, I talked to Cordell Stewart when that alumni thing happened 2 weeks ago at Acrisure Stadium, and he was advocating don't change the offensive coordinator because Pickett needs stability. If I'm Pickett, I'm looking for an excuse why things haven't worked so far, to be honest with you. And Canada seems convenient in that regard. And I bet you that's how the Steelers are thinking too, because it's easier to change the coordinator than admit you screwed up a first-round pick on a quarterback.
Like, when I advocate for whoever else, Trubisky or Rudolph, to start this week, Pickett's going to start. Right. And he's going to start all of next year at the very least, because they have to decide whether or not to pick up his fifth-year option. That comes due at the end of next season. And they don't want to admit they made a mistake.
Let's go to Richard, who says the only...
One other thing too, Tim. I think we need to start exploring the possibility that Kenny Pickett's ruining Matt Canada and not vice versa.
Well, I don't know about that because Canada's offense didn't look real good with Ben either.
Yeah, I don't know that that's not true. I mean, Matt Canada's not the guy bouncing throws.
Yeah, but I don't think he's developed much of a running game either, and that's independent of...
Well, we thought he had the last 2 weeks.
What about that angle? What about the Warren versus Najee angle?
I think them splitting carries is exactly as it should happen. I think the whole has a chance to be greater than the sum of the parts doing that because they're different kinds of backs. They present a different look and a different challenge to the defense. Now, that said, while I like the idea, those two as talents aren't good enough to make that work every week.
By the way, going back to the Johnson and Harris thing, it is ironic, isn't it, that those were the two that were piping up yesterday when they were also the 2 weeks ago who everybody was giving credit for being the voices of reason to calm down George Pickens.
Well, yeah, but sometimes you got to go against your own grain to quell the guy who's even nuttier than you are.
Did you see what Deontay Johnson did moments before we came on the air here?
No.
He subtweeted somebody, I don't know who it was, but somebody did a route combination X and O breakdown of why Deontay Johnson was at fault for screwing up some route that didn't work out. And he subtweeted it and said, I ran the right route here, just saying. You'll do anything for clicks. So he's still he hasn't calmed down in 12 hours is what I'm saying.
Well, let me tell you, one thing I'm sure about. When I see Kenny Pickett and Deontay Johnson misfire on a route read or whatever, I am positive that is Kenny Pickett's fault. 1,000% positive. If there's one thing we know about Deontay Johnson, well, not besides that he drops a lot of balls, he is known as one of the most precise route runners in the league and known for picking the right option when there's an option route. So that's 100% on Pickett.
Richard says the only question now is how long do the Steelers stubbornly keep Pickett as the starter before they finally decide to move on? My answer is at least through the middle of next season.
My answer is the longer the better. It's what's best for business.
Derek, is this considered a Tomlin loss or the Steelers just that bad? He did nothing to help them win it. Like I said, the team was disorganized and chaotic. Yeah, I'll give it a Tomlin loss because you should be able to figure out a way to rattle DTR, for God's sakes. But the Steelers are that bad.
He's a rotten coach. No matter what anybody else says and what they're saying, even as we speak on ESPN, he's a rotten coach. Nobody can tell me why he's good except to point at that streak. Nobody can tell me why he's good.
This team has so many issues, but got a bench Pickett. Unfortunately, they will not. That comes from Jeremy.
Well, Jeremy's right about one thing. They do have more issues than Pickett.
He's right about two things. They're not going to bench him.
Yeah, he's right about it. He should host he should host this thing.
Calvin, with how bad Pickett was playing, how did they not run the ball in the final drive at all? At the very least, just take time off the clock. Horrible coaching and awareness. I want to jump in on this because I saw something interesting. Bryant McFadden was on the KDKA postgame show. They were doing a visual hookup with him. He was sitting for Hokie, I guess. And McFadden said, look, there was always a rule that we had when we were in one-score games late against the Patriots. We always knew what the Patriots were going to do on first down in a time and score situation like what we had against Cleveland today. He said, we always knew that they were going to go screen draw on first down because if they caught a defense napping, they would get yards. If they didn't, at least they burned a little time and then they could make up for the yards on second down. And if they didn't do that, then so be it. But you were at least going to get a little something or the other. They weren't going to go pass, because what if what happened to them is exactly what happened to the Steelers? But it was just interesting to hear what McFadden said, that Brady and Belichick, remember when McFadden was playing, that was the height of Brady and Belichick. When they were at the height of their powers.
That's a real good point. That's a real good point. Here's something else that crossed my mind, Tim. And maybe I'm mistaken about this. I'm going to look it up before I go on the show today on the play-by-play charts. When the Steelers punted to Cleveland on the drive that ended up with DTR going 4 for 4 and winning the game, right?
Yeah.
I believe they could have attempted a 59-yard field goal. Should they have done that, and would that have been their best chance to win? I'm not concluding that. I am merely wondering.
My first response to hearing that, I don't remember if that was exactly the case, but my first response to hearing that, if that was in fact the circumstances, I bet they wouldn't have thought that because that's usually when the defense in the past has come up with their big play against Cleveland.
They didn't,
but hey, their own formula is to hunt for that.
And as good as Boswell's been, that's a little long for him.
Yeah. Let's see here. Pete says it's 10-7.
Phone ringing, Tim. Excuse me. Okay, go ahead.
Is 10-7 still possible? Of course, mathematically, it's still possible. And
I think it's actually likely.
Yeah, because they've got those games against Indy, New England, and Arizona, none of whom are all that good.
Here's the thing, though. 10 points ain't going to beat nobody.
Yeah, if you could lose to DTR and only score 10 points, then you're vulnerable for a loss at any point.
I still think they're going to go 9-8. That's what I predicted all along. I think that's how it's going to wind up.
Marine says, is it really all that hard to find a better punter? This guy's been bad since day one.
Shut up, Maureen. Maureen, shut up. Shut your yapper. Okay, we're going to blame the punter. After that friggin' debacle yesterday, we're going to blame the punter. Get rid of Maureen. Maureen, you're out. Don't even watch anymore.
I wouldn't blame the punter either, although the punter wasn't very good. Let's go to Dave.
Of course he's not. But you see that? Like, there's still X amount of people, and it's a shrinking number, that are not going to blame Pickett, are not going to blame Tomlin.
This is what Dave says. Dave says Pickett and Tomlin got to go. Warren is a stud, went off yesterday. Boy, it's kind of not a
stud, but he had one good carry. Come on.
Oh, I liked it. I was about to say I thought his 13-yard carry was even better than the 74-yarder.
Well, that's true. Oh, no. Hey, he is a classic overachiever, at least at the moment. But if you have to rely on him, you're going nowhere.
Sean wants you to run the power play for the Penguins.
I love hockey, right? And I think I know more about the X's and O's of it and stuff like a power play than the average hockey media guy. And honestly, I'm tired of talking about it. Like, and I hate to dwell on it too much after they just beat the Stanley Cup champs, right? But they would rather fail doing the power play their way than succeed adjusting. They have taken the greatest power play point man of his generation and dropped him in the same losing formula they used last year.
This comes from, where did it go here? Ba said that Yinzer's got to understand that right now Pittsburgh sports teams, it keeps refreshing on me. Basically, it's saying that, here it is, Yinzers need to start getting comfortable with the fact it's Pittsburgh's turn to be the loser teams for the time being.
Oh, that's true. That's true. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the Penguins, made the playoffs, what was it, 14 straight years?
I thought it was 17, actually.
Well, it was 07 through 21.
Yeah, okay.
Whatever that is.
Well, no, through 22. Yeah, 22.
22, right. And they were legitimate threats to win the Stanley Cup every year from 08 through 18, and actually did win it 3 times and made another final. And people are acting like this group is in some way underachieving and letting them down. Nobody wins forever. Could they be doing better than they have been? A little bit. But I think their legitimate opportunity to win the last time was 2018.
And finally,
they traded Malkin, then, like I said, they would have given themselves a better chance, but they chose a different route, and I get it.
Finally, Sam says, will you have a primetime show for Thanksgiving? Not unless Thanksgiving's on a Monday morning.
Wait, what do you mean?
I don't know, a primetime show for Thanksgiving. Why would we have our first ever Thursday primetime show on Thanksgiving?
Well, I mean, I don't know. No, I won't be working on Thanksgiving. In fact, I won't be working on Black Friday either, because while I usually do a show, because I always say we should do a show Black Friday. It's a company holiday. Mm-hmm. But I always say we should do a show because the Steelers play Sunday, invariably, right? I wish they played Thanksgiving. That's when it's actually fun to do a Black Friday show. But in this case, it doesn't matter because we can't get anyone to produce the show on Thanksgiving. Tom, my producer, is off, and he wants, and that's fine. He should, but nobody else will do it because, Tim, these darn kids, they don't want to work today.
So let's put this on for Black Friday. He's off too because it's a company holiday. Is that what you're saying?
Everybody's off. We're all supposed to be off. Okay. I usually I want to take a vacation day like later so we can do the show because it's relevant to the Steelers, but this is okay.
I think I remember maybe this is at 12:50 when we worked after the Steelers when they did play on Thanksgiving. I can't remember where we were working at the time, but didn't we have Boston Market on Green Tree cater for us or something like that?
Oh, I forget. I remember the one time I had stuff at Boston Market to pick up, and their computer malfunction never stopped taking orders. And there were like 9,000 people in the parking lot. So I went to so now I did then what I do now if I don't go to a friend's. I think I'm going to a friend's on Thursday, but now I go to Giant Eagle and get their take home heat and serve, which is every bit as good as Boston Market or Bob Evans or any other place you go. It's just it's tremendous.
So you're saying that Boston Market on Green Tree Road was like the Bear before the Bear when they finally started to pick up business.
Is it open still?
No, it's not. I'm almost certain it's closed now.
I think that's right, but I stopped even driving by there when we moved the studio for the X.
Yes, and now we have Permane Brothers, so we can get turkey sandwiches from Permane Brothers.
We have Cane's Chicken. They don't have turkey at Permane Brothers.
Sure they do. They got turkey sandwiches.
On a regular basis?
No, they don't. They don't have like Thanksgiving turkey, but you can get a turkey Permane Brothers. Yes.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, I've had it there. Yes. What did you think that they limited the menu to? Just capicola and cheese, or what?
I didn't think turkey was one of the options.
Yeah, you can get a turkey sandwich at
I will then.
Yeah, last time I was down there, I got a turkey sandwich actually.
I had a gobble-rito on Friday.
Have you ever done the Mad Mex one?
That's the one, the gobble-rito.
What's the one? Oh, the Pilgrim is the one at get-go. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll probably do that this week. I don't think they discontinue that after Thanksgiving. I might get one after.
All right, so Mark and I will be back after Thanksgiving, and we will be back after the Bengals game against the Steelers on Sunday, and we'll see what happens against Jake Browning.
I think the Steelers will probably lose the game.
How about that? They have all this
I think the Bengals have a good team, not a team that can win a playoff game, but they have a team that can still make the playoffs without Jake Burrow, and they might not. But my point is, if the Steelers' offense plays as bad as it is, they'll score enough points to beat the Steelers.
Yeah, and maybe they'll run somebody over the middle who doesn't drop 5 balls like David Njoku did, and then it'll be even easier for the offense.
Yeah, what about that? I mean, he's really good too.
Yeah, he's having a good year.
Yeah, so you know what? That's Tim. The Steelers have been lucky all year, and even yesterday they got lucky, and it wasn't lucky enough.
Mark is on at 3 today. We'll be back with you next Monday. Make sure you check out the Madden Monday podcast next week as well. This is Madden Benz Unfiltered. Have a good Thanksgiving.